Hello, everybody, and welcome to Tea Talks. It is Wednesday at 7:15. We are going to talk about trauma. This is your trauma education and advocacy talk. So we meet every Wednesday at 7. So thank you guys for joining me. Please like and share this broadcast for anyone who wants to learn about trauma. I am your certified trauma support specialist, Richanda Birks. And this show is actually sponsored by In His Hands LLC, Pinky's Passion and Catering, and Two Biosphere Incorporated. So I have been talking to you guys for a while about trauma. We have been talking about how trauma affects you. We have been talking about how trauma impacts your relationships and your behaviors. And so you may be wondering now, like, what can I do? What can I do to help someone if they come to me and they decide that they want to disclose that they have been traumatized? So we're going to kind of get into a little bit of that today. But you know what I always do first is my mug of the month. So the last time we met last week, remember it was such a beautiful day. I was outside and I had to improvise with my panda mug. But we are back with my mug of the month for April, and this mug actually was sent to me by my aunt who lives in Texas, San Antonio, Texas, and it says, "Don't worry, everything is under control," and it has a remote control as the handle. I thought this was the cutest thing when she mailed it to me a few weeks ago, and I received it and I unwrapped it, and it just gave me so much life. So thank you, Auntie, for sending me this mug. I really appreciate it. I am drinking my green tea today with my honey and lemon, as I always do. So I wanted to get you guys to see my mug of the month. So we're going to go ahead and start talking about how you can help individuals who come to you and disclose that they have experienced something that was traumatic for them. So there's a couple things that we can do. The first thing we want to do is listen to them. We want to listen. We want to make sure that we are giving them our undivided attention. Because when someone comes to you and discloses something to you, you may not know what to do or what to say. But the key thing is to always make sure that you listen. Okay? Give them time. I want to say that again. Give them time. Let them talk at their own pace. It's never a good idea to rush someone or pressure them. Because remember, they are talking to you about something that really, really affects them emotionally, physically, psychologically, spiritually. So trauma, we talked about how trauma affects every part of your being. So when a person is coming to you and disclosing, you want to make sure that you're not rushing them. And if you intervene, make sure that you have time to talk to them. That's what's important. We want to focus on listening. Right? Try to respect the fact that they are choosing to share this information with you rather than asking them a lot of questions. It's our nature sometimes to want to know the details. Well, how did it happen? How did you feel? But sometimes people just really want you to listen without asking them too many questions. So the first thing you want to do is you want to give them time and you want to focus on listening. I always talk about how that's why God gifted us with two of these and one of these. It's because he wants us to listen twice as much as we talk. So make sure we're listening. The next thing you want to do when it comes to listening is accept their feelings. For example, allow them to feel the way that they feel. If they disclose to you that they're upset or sad or depressed or angry, allow them to have those feelings. Accept their feelings. Don't try to negate what they are disclosing and how they are feeling about what they've experienced. Another thing is don't blame them or criticize their reactions. You might wonder why a person responded a certain way or didn't say certain things after this experience or this event that caused this trauma. But what we want to do is we don't want to blame them. We don't want to blame them for what they went through. If they want to talk about certain things that they survived, allow them to have that time. Allow them to say what they need to say. Don't blame or criticize their reactions. If for some reason you feel like, we always want to play Monday morning quarterback. If you feel like, I would have done it this way. We can't expect everyone else to respond the way that we respond. So give them time, listen to them freely, accept their feelings, and don't blame them or criticize their reactions. Another thing is, don't dismiss their feelings. Okay, don't tell them that, don't try to silver lining what they've experienced. Well, at least this didn't happen. I know you went through that, but at least you have this. We don't want to do that, because we don't want to blame them or dismiss how they are feeling. It's their feelings. We want to make sure that we are being helpful, and we're being empathetic, and we're being understanding. It isn't helpful to hear that at least this or at least that. That's not being empathetic, that's being sympathetic. And we always want to show empathy and not sympathy. So use the same words that they use. Many people still classify themselves as a victim. They want to say, I'm a victim of this, or I'm a survivor of this. Allow them, use the words that they use, because remember, they're coming to you and they're disclosing, and maybe they're in the early stages of really beginning to realize that something happened to them that took them to another place in their mind, that took them to another place in their spirit. So use the terms that they use. We want to make sure, we want to be careful that we're not making them feel like we want them to feel, allowing them to feel what they feel. Okay, again, don't dismiss their experiences, and only give advice if you're asked. I mentioned earlier that some people just want a listening ear. They don't want you to say, well, this is what I would do, or this is what I would have done. Just understand, just let them know that I hear you, I believe you, and thank you for sharing that with me. So under the listening category, we're going to recap. We want to give them time, let them talk at their own pace. We want to focus on listening, not respect what they're choosing to share, rather than asking a lot of questions. We want to accept their feelings. Allow them to be upset about what has happened to them. Don't blame them or criticize them for their reactions, because they didn't respond in a way that you may have felt they should have. We don't want to blame them for that. Use the same words that they use. They use words that, because this is how they're describing their experience to you, and this is what they're feeling right now. It may not always be that way, but at this moment, as they're disclosing to you, this is what they're feeling. Don't dismiss their experiences. Don't try to put a silver lining around what they're sharing with you, and only give advice if they ask you. They might prefer for you to simply hear and say that you believe them and thank you for sharing. Okay, if someone talks to you about what happened, they may seem like they're a little bit of unemotional or casual, and even though they're sharing something that was very upsetting for them, and this is normal, because some people tend to dissociate from the feelings that they have about their experiences. So it may seem a little bit odd to you, or they may not be displaying emotion that coincides with what they've gone through. But don't be surprised about that, because a lot of times people who have experienced trauma, they tend to dissociate their feelings. Hearing about trauma can be really hard, whether someone shares specific details with you, or you may be upset about what they have told you, and that's totally normal. That's why we always have to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves and taking care of our own mental health. The next thing you want to do is you want to learn their triggers. It might help if you ask about situations or conversations that might trigger flashbacks, or that might be difficult feelings for them. For example, they might be distressed about loud noise, or loud talking, or if an argument erupts, that may trigger them to think about the trauma that happened. So we want to make sure that we're aware of those things that may cause them some type of flashback or may cause them to relive, I'm gonna use that word, to relive the trauma that has already happened to them. Okay, so learn their triggers. And it's simple as having a conversation. You know, if you feel a person becoming anxious or you feel a person becoming uncomfortable with what they are sharing with you, or if you've said something, we mentioned before in one of my other talks, intent versus impact. You may intend to be empathetic, you may intend to mean something as a joke or trying to make light of a situation, but the impact that it has on that person still impacts them. We can't say, you know, you can say I didn't mean it in that way, but go back and apologize for how it made them feel. You know, because everyone's not going to take your intention the same way. So we want to just be careful when we're dealing with people's emotions and their feelings, and they decide that you are the one that they feel comfortable with, that you are the one that they trust to come and say, hey, I would like to share this with you. Okay, so learn their triggers. Try not to judge them. If you've gone through trauma yourself or you feel differently about a shared experience, it can be hard to understand why your friend or family member is responding in that way, or if they can't seem to move on. We want to be careful with telling people or expecting people to move on in a time frame. We don't want to put time limits on an individual's healing. We don't want to put time limits on an individual's recovery. We want to make sure that we're allowing them to move at a pace that's comfortable for them. We don't want to judge them because they haven't, if something happened 10 years ago and they're still living with the effects of that. Remember, we talked about trauma is not an event, it's an experience. And so the way you experienced it may actually put you in a place where you can't move. You may freeze. We talked about those triggers. You may freeze. So we want to make sure that we are not judging how a person is experiencing this trauma, or how they're experiencing or choosing to move on, or if they can't even move on from what happened, right? So try not to judge. Don't take over. You know, that's another one. If you're worried about someone, it's understandable, but we don't want to disagree with what they do. If they don't want to immediately jump on your advice, or they don't want to immediately accept what you're telling them, we don't want to ridicule them because they're disagreeing with us, right? Traumatic experience usually involve being powerless. So remember, when a person is gone through an experience that their body and their mind has deemed as traumatic, it takes away their power. It takes away their control over how they feel, because now this trauma, even though it may have happened some time ago, your brain remembers and it triggers your body to think that you're always in danger. Remember, we talked about how you can scan the room and say, you know, you're looking at things to say, okay, this is dangerous, this is not safe. You know, this feels comfortable, but this may not feel comfortable, because that part of your brain that controls your emotions are now reacting out of those same emotions that you experienced when that event happened. So we don't want to take over. We don't want to force them to feel or accept our our examples, or accept our advice right then and there. So don't take over. Try to encourage them. Encourage and support them in their own choices. Respect their privacy. You know, when people come and share, if they don't give you the green light to say, hey, you know what, can you talk to someone else about this for me? We want to make sure that we're being confidential. That's a lot of the issue when it comes to individuals who have experienced this trauma, is that their trust level is not there. They don't trust each and every individual. They may feel like people are actually judging them, like we talked about before. We may feel that people may shame them, because there's a lot of shame and low self-esteem and things that come with a trauma experience. So we want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to help that individual, and respecting that because they shared it with you doesn't mean they want everyone to hear about it. Another thing we want to do is we want to help them find support. Help them find somewhere that they can go to talk to someone. You know, all of us need sometimes that outlet. to go and say, hey, you need to talk to a professional, or you need to talk to someone who's a peer supporter, or you need to talk to go to a support group, or, come and join this organization, or talk to these individuals. Help them find support. Those are the things that we want to do when people are sharing with us. We want to make sure that we are listening to them. We want to make sure that we are not judging them. We want to make sure that we learn their triggers. We want to make sure that we don't take over, that we don't just force our opinion and advice on them and expect them to take it right away, because they are still, again, learning to accept that this is what happened and now I'm sharing it. That's a difficult thing. We have to think about a time where we experienced something that kind of made us feel sad, or made us feel angry, and the first time we actually shared it with another person. That makes you vulnerable. It's a very vulnerable space that we're putting ourselves in, and we're open. Okay, we want to respect their privacy. We want to help them find support. And when an individual comes to you and they are disclosing, we want to look after our own mental health. You all know that I am the poster child for self-care. We want to make sure that we are always taking care of us, that we're always looking after our mental health, because when someone comes in and talks to you about that, there's something called vicarious trauma. Vicarious trauma means that I don't have to be involved, but just because I know about it, and just because I care about you, and just because I hear about it, it can actually cause me to feel trauma in my life, because now I know that this happened to you, and I'm beginning to feel what you feel. So we want to make sure, again, that we are always taking care of us as we are helping individuals with their trauma. So sometimes you'll have those people who, and consider it, I want to say this, consider it a privilege and an honor when people decide that you're the person that they can trust. They obviously see something in you. They see something in you that is valuable. They see that you're a person that they can actually look up to. They see that you may be a person that could even give them the choice and the help that they need. So again, we want to make sure that we are giving someone our undivided attention. We know we live in a world where technology and our phones are glued to our hips at times, and you can't actively listen to someone if you're distracted. Remove all distractions. If I was your friend and I said, hey, you know what? I want to talk to you about something that happened to me. Say, let me meet you at a coffee shop. Let me meet you at a restaurant. Let's go have lunch. Let's go have dinner, so that I can give you my undivided attention. I invite them over to your house and just really sit down and try to understand where they are coming from. Because again, what they experienced is so devastating, can be so devastating, that they may have been holding this in for a very long time, and now is the time that they feel they are ready. So we want to make sure, again, I want to go over these again with you. How can you help? You may ask. So the title of this Tea Talk is, how can I help? What can I do? You can listen to them. Give them time. Accept their feelings. Focus on listening. Don't blame or criticize their reactions. Use the same words that they're using. Don't dismiss their experiences. Only give advice if they ask. Learn their triggers. That's important. Learn their triggers. We never want to re-traumatize or re-victimize an individual because we're using words or we're saying things that is going to take them back to the incident that happened. Learn their triggers. Try not to judge. We all have experienced something, and we want to feel free and comfortable to talk about it so that we can erase the stigma that's attached to almost everything, right? Almost everything, there's a stigma that can be attached to it. Don't take over. Trauma takes your power away. When a person classifies or determines that something was traumatic for them, it takes their power away. So we don't want to criticize them for not taking our advice right away. We don't want to criticize them for not moving when we think that they should move, because that again can make them feel even more powerless. Respect their privacy. Don't share details of what they've gone through unless you have their permission. Okay? They might not want to tell mutual friends about things or family members about what happened. They chose you. okay? This doesn't mean keeping everything to yourself and not getting support. You want to help them find support. Take them somewhere, give them phone numbers, have those resources handy so that when that person comes to you, you can say, here, I know a person you can call, or, you can call this number, or let's find someone together. Let me help you, okay? And look after your own mental health. That is key. Look after your own mental health. When a person discloses information to you, those same feelings and thoughts can attach itself to you. So we want to make sure that we are looking after our own mental health. So that is what you can do. And that's what I wanted to share with you guys this week during our Tea Talks, is that I wanted to give you some tips and pointers on how you can then help. I've told you all of this stuff about trauma and how it affects you, how it affects your relationships. And you might have wondered to yourself, okay, what if a loved one comes to me and discloses some really painful, some really sad, some really depressing news with me? What can I do to show empathy? What can I do to help them? What can I do instead of just feeling those feelings? So I've given you some really great tips, and I hope you guys enjoyed this segment of Tea Talks, and we're going to come back next week. Next week I'm going to be talking about some different triggers, some different how our body adapts to trauma. So thank you guys for joining me this evening. Please like and share this broadcast. We are live. I am actually at KAZ Radio Studio this week. So I'm going to be back in the home studio on next week. So please remember to like and share this broadcast. And thank you for joining me on Tea Talks, your trauma education and advocacy podcast, station, talk, and everything. So I hope you guys learned something this week. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I will see you later.